moment because I don't know how to stream a little happy music and dancing, but we're good. So I am your old pal Emac. This is Dan Strafford, a pairing you have not seen in damn near forever.
True.
Seen, no. Heard, yes, because we've done a few podcasts. But this is our first show together here at Awesemo, I believe. But that's okay. And everybody right now is saying, yeah, boo, look at these guys. You know what? Hi, assholes. We have over 50 years of fantasy baseball experience. We're good. We got this. Dan, the control booth is yours.
Oh, and away we go, Emac. Nothing better than that. That is a heck of an intro. Glad to be with everybody on this Saturday morning. Jake is out. Adam is out. Adam's moving into a new apartment. Congrats to Adam. Hopefully they have internet there. I still won't believe it until I see it. But we have a long day of Saturday baseball games that we're going to run through with myself and Emac. Happy to be here. We'll roll through the two early games first. You have to sort of get onto the very early slate on the majority of sites to play these, but we'll talk about them briefly, and then we'll get to the early and main slates, of course, to give you guys all a sense of where Emac's looking, where we think the upside is for potential stacks and the top pitchers of the day. That early slate, little foreshadowing here, is really ugly when it comes to pitching. So we'll have some fun talking through the matchups there. We start with Twins and Rays, Emac. It's Kyle Gibson and Yanni Chirinos. If you take old school stats, Gibson 5-2, 4.08 ERA, Yanni Chirinos 6-1, 2.91 ERA. It's an even line right now, and an 8 over under. Twins bats obviously have been very good. Rays bats as well. But the pitchers here are not too shabby. Where do you see this game breaking down, and how do you see upside if you're playing in this sort of two-game early slate?
Yeah, this one's going to be a little bit different than most because generally on Saturday we usually get some form of a game in Toronto, usually a New York game, and then about four teams total. But we're in that weird little stretch in September as we head into July, and they'll do this again in August where we get a heavy 4 o'clock slate for those of us on the East Coast. So this early one is sort of going to be treated just a little bit differently than what we usually talk about on these days. So let me get my information up. Oh, I'm laughing. So Slack says, we love the new combination. YouTube chat is Emacs coming in hot, spicy Emac, etc. As I'm pulling this stuff up, a quick little story here. So I was mentioned to Dan. I messaged him at about 10:30 and said, "Oh my God, I just woke up. Give me a second." So here's the funny story. My wife's out of town. Dog gets her up she gets up at 5, wakes the dog up about 5:30. Dog let me sleep until 6. Got her out, went for a walk. We got her fed and all that. Made the bed and I lied down on it. I'm like, you know what? I pulled the dog up there with me and I was holding her. She's not that big. She's about 15 pounds. I said, all right, well, she'll wake me up before anything happens. We'll get up, in an hour or whatever. 4 hours. I took a 4-hour nap already today, folks. Now, if Adam was telling you that story, 4-hour nap? Yeah, likely story. Nope, I took a 4-hour nap already today and didn't even know I was going to do it, so I didn't get to enjoy it. Woke up in a panic, and here we are. But speaking of panic, what is going to happen here? Like that segue, Dan. What is going to happen here with Kyle Gibson? I really like Kyle Gibson going against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay now, they have no household names, but they are definitely a much better offense, particularly their first 4 or 5 players. We've got their announced lineup right now. I think Austin Meadows, Brandon and Nick Laulo are intriguing. Go with the lefty. Oh, wait, they're both lefties. Go with the guy batting second. Kevin Kiermaier, I prefer him on Sundays because he always hits a home run on Sunday, #analysis. And then Yi-Min Choi is actually the crown jewel of, I think, the early slate, actually. He's someone that has been just disappeared from time to time, but you can get him at 3,400 on DK, 2,700 on FanDuel, and then 11 on Yahoo. Yahoo, of course, does the from whenever lock is through the rest of the game, so you'll definitely want to keep an eye on some of these guys in the early games. For me, it's going to be Yi-Min Choi, and I will even take him on the short slate against Kyle Gibson. Gibson, solid pitcher. Adam and Lafayette talked about it ad nauseum. Does not quite have the pitch mix that they would like to see he does have all the stuff. It's just not quite being put together with his full portfolio, which they've been literally talking about for a year and a half. So it's shocking that these teams, Dan, do not make that sort of move because they have, wait for it, much better data than even the DFS community. On the other side here, going against Chirinos, I think you can look to Kepler. I always like Rosario. Miguel Sano back with the big club. He is batting 5th. He sort of gets promoted about a batting slot every other day since he's returned. So he's somebody that we can look to. Light tower power, if he ever connects, could get the golden sombrero today. Could hit 2 home runs, but that's sort of what I'm looking at in this first game here.
Yeah, chasing power, Sano makes a ton of sense if you're just looking to chase some home runs. Kyle Gibson's the sort of pitcher who we've talked about many times, as Emac just said, and he's kept the walks down this year. Strikeout rate, you'd like to see climb a little bit, but the walks below 6%, which is a great number when you're trying to get some length out of a pitcher, especially on these whip sites, walks hits per inning pitched. So you want to make sure that Gibson, at least a little bit in your plans, this early slate or more maybe on Yahoo, depending on pricing, could make some sense. Let's roll on to that second game that is not typical on a typical slate for us. Indians and White Sox. Jeffrey Rodriguez, Ivan Nova, minus 120 for Cleveland, a 10.5 over under. Vegas not really giving much respect to either of these pitchers. Emac over the years, Nova's not a strikeout guy. He lives in the zone, gives up a lot of contact. So you'd think from the Indians' perspective, there is some power upside for the Lindors and Jose Ramirez's of the world. Even, the Bowers, other guys who have the power in their bat. Do you see any pitching here? Or is this simply, if you're playing a showdown or you're playing a single game or over on Yahoo, picking one or two power bats for the Indians and moving on?
Yeah, I want to stay far, far away from the pitching in this one. Nova feels like he literally has been around the league forever, but I think this is just like his 11th year, I believe, maybe 10th, which is just surprising. He's still, I think he's like 32, but because he was with the Yankees, he was forever in our consciousness, etc. Had some nice moments with them here and there. You are a Yankees truther, as they say, but he really only had about 2, maybe 3 good campaigns. The rest of the time it was chasing those good campaigns and disappointing his fans. He had a bit of a resurgence when he went to Pittsburgh.
As do many starters.
Well, my favorite is Pittsburgh and Tampa Bay trading pitchers to each other. It's like, we can't make it work. You can't make your guy work. Can we make it worse? Yes, in the case of Chris Archer, and no, we can actually make it better in the case of Tyler Glasnow. But back to our friend here, Von Nova, not anywhere near what he was at his apex, let alone his resurgence there with Pittsburgh. So I'm happy to take guys against him. Puts way too many base runners on, as you mentioned, still pitches to contact, sort of frustrating. In general, throughout his career, doesn't allow an overabundance of power, but it still happens. Now, he does a decent job because he allows so much contact. In general, he can get a nice timely double play or something that usually keeps the bases clear when he does give up the power, because that's when he pitches more aggressively. So if you're doing a little home run hunting, as they say, there might be 1 or 2 for this one. This is how Jason Kipnis is still batting cleanup. I don't know, but poor Jose Ramirez is in a mega slump. Jake Bowers is actually the guy I like. If you can get him in the outfield, some sites he's first base eligible. I would prefer him in the outfield. He'd probably be the guy I go to against Nova along with Lindor. On the other side, Jeffrey Rodriguez, let me see. For some reason, I believe he was with the Nationals. Yep, that was last year. Trying to erase that from my mind. He's made a grand total of 15 starts in his career, 21 total appearances. He's got 92 innings and 68 strikeouts. That's not the ratio we want to see. He also has allowed 13 home runs in his time in the bigs. Not a great number there either. So he's someone we can definitely look to target. The players with whom I would like to go against him would be the lefties here. So that limits what we're looking for effectiveness with Chicago. You can look to Lurie Garcia at the top of the lineup. He is $2,700 on FanDuel. That's great. 4,500 on DK, no bueno, unless you're playing that 2-game slate. But I like him. I'm good with Eloy Jimenez, even though it's righty-righty, and then Yonder Alonso. But again, now we've mentioned, 3 first basemen that we're okay with. We can only really play one of them on most sites. You can work them 2 in there on FanDuel, but Yonder Alonso, bit of a slump this season. One of my favorite players, just I don't know why, but he is. But he has not been nearly as good as he has been in the past. He was not last year, but the year before was sort of when we had this whole metric revolution, Dan. He was a guy there in his time with Oakland that literally hit like 12 home runs in the first 22 games or some ungodly number like that, and his price never moved on DraftKings. So people were writing in, they were sending him on Twitter, for the love of God, please increase his price, because you just had to keep playing him. That was an unexpected streak from him. He does have situational power where he's okay, but you really can't predict it. But he would probably be the third of the 3 first basemen we have talked about.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. You have some switch hitters here. Yoan Moncada as well at third base. You can do a 8-9-1-2 stack if you want to get crazy with the White Sox. I don't think you need to on this early slate at all, but just to differentiate a little bit. And Jose Abreu, don't know that it comes into play here, but one of those guys I'm tracking from a expected WOBA and expected ISO versus the actual numbers we've seen thus far. His actual numbers thus far have underproduced comparatively to the expected stats over there on StatCast. So not necessarily the best matchup, but a guy I'm sort of putting a pin in to try to keep an eye on as we continue on here. Let's roll on to our next contest and discuss one that will be in one of these slates, Kansas City and the Texas Rangers. This game in Texas, last check, it's supposed to be 77, 80 degrees, starting to really warm up there in Globe Life. Minus 155 in favor of Texas, 10.5 over under. Lance Lynn against Homer Bailey. 2 pitchers that are fine. Adam and I did the DFS early bird last night and talking about this slate. Pitching's going to be rough. You're going to have to make some choices, either going super cheap and hoping for 10 to 12, maybe even 15-point upside, or paying all the way up for Woodruff and Soroka and hoping for the best. But Royals, Rangers, tons of bats that we can go through. Any interest in Bailey or Lynn in this short slate on DK or FanDuel?
No, Lance Lynn is somebody I usually take a peek at just to see what the opposition is going to be running out, but we're just not getting enough righty-righty batters or, matchups here against him because Ryan O'Hearn, said it already once today, but light tower power, literally. Alex Gordon seemingly learning how to hit at age, 34? You've got Nicky Lopez, pesky as hell up at the top, and then Adalberto Mondesi, who any team would be thrilled to have on their roster. So those are the guys I'm looking to. It's definitely not going to be a night where I'm going with Lance Lynn. I do want to point out one thing. I don't know who the catcher is going to be. It wasn't Mathis last night. I think it was Connor Falifa. So Mathis should be behind the dish tonight. Kansas City does lead the league in steals by a wide margin. You've got Adalberto Mondesi, who's number 1. You've got Billy Hamilton, who's in the top 10. Merrifield's, I think he's like 8th or not, 7th or 8th. I haven't looked in a few days, but those guys are all really good. Jeff Mathis has allowed 26 steals in basically the same number of starts behind the plate, going from memory there this season, but he is not good at all at throwing out base runners. So there's your sort of hidden upside, if you will. You know where it's likely going to come from these guys. I don't hate Jorge Soler if he's in the lineup. A lot of that's going to depend on position. They've moved Ryan O'Hearn back down a couple spots just because he has been slumping. But Soler does have excellent righty power. And one of the things you want to remember is, even though Lance Lynn's very good against same-handed hitters, so aka righties, what is the strength of each individual? And when it comes down to hitters, it's like Soler is much better, in my opinion, against righties than he is lefties, and he's well above average against righties. He's going to kind of win out, per se, in that matchup, because even though Lance Lynn is good, that doesn't mean he's going to suppress every single righty he faces. In general, he will, But all it takes is one swing of the bat, as we know in DFS, to pop up the leaderboard there. So Soler is someone I think that could go overlooked today. 41 on DK, 33 on FanDuel. So I prefer him, or I like him on both those. 18 on Yahoo. Little tight there. Probably would look elsewhere outside of stacks. If you're going to stack this game on Yahoo, which I don't think is a bad way to go, you're going to want to find some cheapies elsewhere. And as we've mentioned in this 4 o'clock slate, you're going to be going with cheap pitching anyway and rolling the dice. So not a bad way to go there.
Yeah, this is all offense here, and I think you make a great point. Kiner Falefa and Mathis both have struggled, so probably point even more to the pitching staff. Not to say either of them is an elite defender, but over time, you really find that the pitching staff and the way the pitchers, you look at the Mats and Syndergaard over the years, having so much struggles with base runners, probably safe to assume some of these starters for the Texas Rangers over their careers have some poor numbers as well, not giving the catchers even an opportunity to be league average in throwing out runners. But the speed makes a lot of sense to mark off in this contest. And obviously, talking about power, you have tons when it comes to Texas with Mazzara, Joey Gallo, Chu at the top, Hunter Pence. Bailey's not good. We know that. The heat is in our favor. Pretty sure it's a pretty humid day there too, which it typically is for this time of year in Texas. So all signs pointing to a big offensive day. This early slate is going to be about finding those 2 home run bats. I really do believe the pitching's just that bad. So you're going to want to experiment with some stacks and some 2-mans. I really do like Gallo here as a one-off, just searching for power as well. Emac, ready to move on to the next game?
Yep, absolutely. And I just dropped the link in chat. We did mention Yahoo, so come in on that link, use the promo code OSMO, and you can get $30 matched with your first DFS deposit there. And that comes in the form of Yahoo Sports Rewards points, YSRPs, which are just as good as cash and can be used in any contest immediately. Speaking of contests, they still
I'm on it. Don't do it. Don't do it. I'll do the read. Damn it, Emac.
Oh,
damn it.
There you
Let
go.
me do it.
I'm sorry.
Well, I don't know what you were going to say.
I was going to say, act quickly because the Rake Free contest has 99 spots left in it. That starts at 7:15 today. Did anybody finish?
So are you saying 99 spots and the rake ain't one?
The rake ain't one. The management fee isn't either. But this guy, 2 thumbs pointed. This guy, hat tip to Matthew Berry, finished 8th in the contest last night there in the Rake Free tournament. $3, no more than 10 entries from anybody. No CSV uploads. You may be playing against names you recognize, but it's your best 10 against their best 10. And that's just how I'm happy to go into battle.
So for those of you on YouTube or listening to this later on, we have another giveaway, game number 2 of the NBA Final. Win 3 months of all access if you guess the closest number of total points the Raptors score in game number 2. So just the Raptors. The total points the Raptors score in game number 2. It's a $210 value. Reply with your guess to the pinned tweet on Osmo_com over on Twitter. You must retweet that tweet and follow the Twitter account at Osmo_com and Osmo NBA. Use the hashtag NBA Finals. Giveaway rules. Your guest must be in before tip-off game 2 of the NBA Finals. Must retweet and follow. If there is a tie, we will pick one random winner from the finalists. So that is a good way to get in free over at Osmo.com. 3 free months. That carries you through a large majority of baseball season. And then probably, June 1st to September 1st. So you'd be right at the start of NFL as well. So let's continue on our road through Major League Baseball games. The day up next, Brewers and Pirates. I will check the weather on this one. I know there were some storms out near Pittsburgh as of last night, projected for today. We'll check as we talk through the possibilities here. We have 2 diametrically opposed pitchers. One, Brandon Woodruff, K upside, expensive across the board. And then Nick Kingham, not very good, facing a team laden with power, laden with lefty power with which he struggles, but he's really damn cheap across the board. So I would assume on this short slate, Mac, these 2 are both in play simply because of skill set for Woodruff and price point for Kingham. But where does the pitching break down in this one for you?
So this is going to be the tough one. Woodruff's going to be the guy that we want to lean towards. Last show I did with Josh, guessing it was, I think it must have been last Sunday. We went a little bit back and forth on if we wanted to go with Woodruff. He was staunchly behind him. I was tepid at best. He won me over. It was a pricing situation, and ultimately just staring down the nearly 30% combined strikeout rate in his time in the majors against his last 400 batters won me over. This one, so Pittsburgh doesn't strike out nearly as much as like literally any team. They don't even really have in their. Oh, we actually have their. Do we have their? Yeah, we've got their actual lineup here. So their actual lineup projects out with 3 players that strike out essentially above 20%. Everybody else is 20% or below. Yep. That's going to be a little bit dicey, particularly when we're looking at the price here on Woodruff as the sites have sort of caught up with recent performance. He's still going to have the highest strikeout rate. Pittsburgh still not that terrifying of an offense in general, but strikeouts are the currency of the realm in daily fantasy sports, and that's what we want to get to. His price per pitch today should be reasonable, but you are paying top dollar and then some at 10,100 there on DraftKings, which just makes it something I'm not really ready to go for yet. But the pivot I would be looking to is going to be in one of our upcoming games. It'd be Tanner Roark. Ain't much of a discount there on DraftKings. You're saving $500. So then it comes down to where we're looking at for ownership. But in this one, I think we're still going to land on the side of Woodruff. Just know that this is a situational play amongst what we're looking at from the pitchers. You're earmarking a ton of your salary to him, and I don't know that that's going to be worth it on this 4 o'clock slate.
Yeah, I'm with you. And DK, with their tight pricing on pitching, Roark is 7,300 as compared to 9,500 for Woodruff over on FanDuel. We'll check in on Yahoo. I really think this is a slate where I'm going to load up on bats, see what stacks I like best, and then slot in whatever pitcher fits. Yes, there's some upside to Woodruff. Pittsburgh doesn't strike out a ton. Soroka is not a huge strikeout pitcher. He's been great. Good matchup. We'll get to that game in a little bit. But I'd rather roster Hess and Kingham or Hess and Soroka, like go really cheap stars and scrubs at pitching and really get all the bats that I want in these matchups. Offensively in this one, doesn't look like there's any rain in the area, just checked in. Doesn't look like there's really any weather to be concerned about across either slate. There could be some pop-up thunderstorms in a couple of spots for some delays, but I don't think we're really going to be concerned about any sort of postponements or significant delays on this slate at all. Offensive bats here, EMAC, between these two rosters where you have Pittsburgh, who doesn't strike out a ton, so they're making contact, putting the ball in play. On the other side, you have the power bats for Milwaukee. Do you have one-offs you like, or is this simply stack or get out?
I think it's going to be stack or get out. Of course, the ultimate one-off is Christian Yelich, but it's not really a cheapie there, and he's going to be someone who's quite popular in his last 600 plus plate appearances in lefty-righty matchups. He has a 440 WOBA and a 320 ISO. Those are just, MVP caliber numbers. Oh, wait. He's an MVP. The other guy would be, of course, Mike Moustakas, and he's someone that you can look to in pretty much any situation where he's facing a righty. He has been shuffled towards the heart of the order here for Milwaukee, and that is definitely a good thing. In PNC Park, while it is more of a pitcher's park, lefties do not take quite as much of a hit from a power perspective as righties do with the way the stadium is configured. So I'm still okay with the lefties here going against Kingham. The one thing you'll want to notice, Kingham's probably going to go 3 innings and change, and then we're going to get some bullpen action. Not that we dislike the bullpen, but it's going to generally be fresher arms, and it's not going to be Stephen Brault. Yeah, Brault's for them. I don't think there's anybody that's going to be the bulk guy, so it's probably going to be fresh arms every other inning, which doesn't always help the batters.
early ownership projections have Woodruff around quarter owned. I do not mind the idea of power bats from Pittsburgh, meaning Moran, Melky even, but Josh Bell has just been so damn good this year that I don't think matchup matters with him. I don't care if it's a power pitcher or not. Bell for a home run, if not two today, would not surprise me at all. So if you want to get a little different, haven't checked Bell's ownership projection. Again, this is all over at awesemo.com if you want to check it out to become a member. MLB strategy code for 50% off your first month, or win that Toronto game tonight, the score that you need to predict for 3 months for free. Josh Bell will be, at least in a few of my lineups, chasing that home run and chasing hopefully some depressed ownership simply because Woodruff is going to be so high on this slate. Let me do a quick control F and see if I can find. That can't be right. Our projection for ownership. I will wait for the update on that one. I'm not going to quote that one right now. It seems very low, way too low. I know his price point is up, but if you play Kingham and Hess and then you have access to all of these high-end bats. Let's roll on EMAC in this early slate. Obviously, the better games seem to be in our late slate. This is going to be one to figure out. We have Giants, Orioles, Tigers, Braves, Nationals, Reds. Pitching is kind of messy throughout all of these games. Orioles and Giants, let's go to next, simply because David Hess is going to be a big question mark. We've seen his upside. We saw him put up, 32, 33 DraftKings points early in the season. And we've seen his obvious downside, where he is in the negatives and is a pitcher who's not even getting out of the first or second inning. The San Francisco Giants are not a dynamic offense. They struggle at home. Clearly, that's Oracle Park, which can be a bad sign for any offense. Camden Yards, much more hitter-friendly, a nice park boost for all of the bats for San Francisco. But does David Hess enter into the process here simply because he's so damn cheap across the board?
So here's my thing with Hess. Is he playing the Toronto Blue Jays? No. All right, so that's immediate strike one for him because he has been lights out randomly in his 3 starts against the Blue Jays, like literally looking like, holy cow, I wish this guy was on my team. And then he cruises through the rest of the AL, particularly the AL East, and it's ugly, 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 ugly. That also describes a lot of what pitching is going to be on this 4 o'clock slate. So if you're wanting to roll the dice, I'm not going to fight anybody over going to Hess. I'm sure I will probably have a little bit since I am into the mass multi-entry game here. Now, one thing I want to point out, since this is the DFS strategy show, I don't generally play in the 150 in the same contest. So what you can do is enter a bunch of the leagues and the low stakes stuff, and when I say leagues, I mean the somewhere between 100 and 150 people, etc. Get yourself 150 lineups in there at somewhere between the quarter through $1 or $2 range. You're averaging about 60 cents per entry, and then make your 150 because the payout structures are going to be that much better. Yes, you're not going to get a 5-figure win, but when was the last time most of us had a 5-figure win? I will be happy with doubling, tripling, or quadrupling my money. And generally, I've found in these sorts of strategies, I don't lose more than 30 or 40% on any given day, just because I'm going against, in these smaller leagues, a lot of, less entries from each individual player. So they're not getting getting really crazy. A lot of people don't run stacks in these smaller field contests because they only have between 1 and usually 15 entries in these. And then the other thing that you want to remember is that they're also not they're playing more of what would be a cash game or optimal lineup, so the chalk ends up being a little heavier than most. So if you're willing to apply the different strategies we talk about on the DFS strategy show, the free articles that Alex Baker, you know him as Osmo, has posted on the site, you can find those up in the upper left of the Osmo site. It's called Learn DFS for Free. Talks about contest selection, diversification, all sorts of stuff. You're going to get more bang for your buck. My whole game plan in DFS these days is to, 1, have fun, 2, not have to redeposit. And by utilizing this strategy for the better part of the last year, I have successfully done both of those. So again, not going to see a ton of screenshots from me, but I'm not, pouting and angry and kicking, wanting to kick the dog. Not that I'd ever kick the dog, but because I'm losing and having to redeposit yet again, and all these guys are so good. No. Just recalibrate what you're looking at. So to bring it back full circle here, yes, this is not the most exciting of pitching matchups on this slate. However, we all have the same pitchers with whom we choose in our portfolio. So take some chances here, because you're not going to like your lineup a ton, or you're not going to feel good about your lineup. Nobody else is on this 4 o'clock slate either.
Makes a lot of sense. You're going to be mixing and matching. As I said it before, I'm going to find out what offensive pieces I want the most, go through, make that lineup, and then figure out what pitchers fit. I'm not really concerned about getting a specific pitcher on this slate. I don't think anyone has that gigantic an upside from the starting pitcher perspective that they're going to break the slate in any way. So I'll take my 10, 15 points from the cheaper guys and see what we're doing. Could a Hess or a Kingham tank? Sure. But that's well within the range of outcomes I'm operating with here. So I will see where my offense comes first and then go from there. Offensively, I would say in this game, Brandon Belt would be the one San Francisco Giant bat that I like. Sean Alexander? Is that Sean Alexander?
Sean V. It's Sean V.
Sean Anderson, right, is our pitcher of choice from the San Francisco Giants, a youngster who they brought up recently. Don't know a ton about him. The Orioles are a middling offense. I know for a while to start the year, we picked on them a good deal, but they've been better of late. Is it worth carrying here, or is it just moving on and just getting some offense from the Milwaukee bats and from other games and picking and choosing maybe one-offs in this one?
Great question. Did you know that Sean Anderson actually set the Washington State Class A high school record for a mile in the spring of 1987 with the 4:16? Did
you say this, the pitcher?
No, Sean Anderson, my high school classmate.
I was going to say 87. Jeez, that doesn't make much sense. No. I thought you might have misquoted 87 and 97, but...
No. So well before this incarnation of Sean Anderson was walking the earth. I don't really like the matchup for him in Camden Yards in the heat. He is someone I have played in most of his starts when he has been out there in AT&T Pac Bell. What are we going?
Oracle Park.
God darn it. I've been there. I walked around the park. Beautiful park. One of the ones that was designed by the same company that did Safeco Field. Wait for it. No, now that's T-Mobile Park in Seattle and Coors Field. So you just absolutely gorgeous park there. But that's where you'll want to take the pitchers. When the San Francisco pitchers move out of that park, unless your name is Madsen Bumgarner, you're going to struggle somewhat. I don't want to go with Anderson in this matchup, even though there's nobody particularly terrifying here for the Orioles. They do have a decent collection of hitters that do have power, particularly in the heart of the order against fellow righties, from Trey Mancini to Nunez. And then you can look at their lefties with Stewart and Smith Jr. Those guys are solid. Wilkerson, I'm not a fan, but if he's at the top of the order, which he ought to be in this matchup, he's 2,800 on FanDuel. He is 3,700 on DK, and he is a glorious 11 on Yahoo. So he is someone that can help facilitate getting in the better hitters. But if he's at the top of the third of the order, I want him in my Baltimore stack. If he's not, I don't. San Francisco has a middling bullpen. And then, again, being on the road in the AL East in hot temperatures, a far cry from pitching by San Francisco Bay.
Let's move on to our next contest. Detroit and the Braves. Soroka is your chalk pitcher of the day. Braves minus 260, 9.5 over-under against Daniel Norris. Soroka's chalk, right, Emac? So if you're building cash lineups for this early slate, makes tons of sense to figure out how to get him in there. Any bats that you like in this one for the Braves? Do you go Acuna and the righty power bats against Daniel Norris?
Yes. I think you want to look to clearly Josh Donaldson. He has not really made a lot of noise since he has been with Oakland. Uh, from that perspective, he sort of had a lost couple campaigns there with Toronto dealing with injury, but he has turned into an elite hitter against righties and left. Or we always knew he was against lefties, but righties as well. But he hasn't done a ton really yet this season, so I think he's someone that goes overlooked all too often with his new team. So I love him against Norris. Freddie Freeman, of course, is absolutely elite in lefty-lefty matchups. Since the beginning of last season, he has a 400 WOBA and a 230 ISO in same handed matchup, so I think he's okay. But I think the guy you really want to get in this one is going to be Acuna. Should be at the top of the order. He does give you the pop. He does have the potential to steal some bases, so that would be the route I would look at. Flipping the script, I don't hate Norris on this particular incarnation of our 4 o'clock slate. It's not the friendliest of matchups, but if we're looking from a price perspective and we need some discounts, he is someone that would not shock me if he could get 5-ish innings, give up a couple runs. Probably one of them will come on a home run, maybe 2, and a handful of strikeouts. And if he just survives, it can help us today. I think we're looking to stop the bleeding, which is not really what you want to do when you're coming in with your pitchers to start the slate. But it's, I hope they don't get blown up. Fingers crossed. The one guy that you would want to spend on would probably be Soroka. You've got Detroit, who is one of the worst offenses in the league, both from a strikeout perspective as well as a run scoring perspective, and they don't have the designated hitter today. Not that that particularly helps them, but they're going with a pitcher instead of a true hitter, so that weakens their lineup even more than it already is. Again, with any pitcher on this slate, it looks like, particularly on DraftKings, that has a modicum of talent, we're paying above what the sticker price should be for most of them. But again, this is all slate specific for what we're doing here. But if I was going to spend in a cash game, Soroka would be the guy.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And I think that makes it pretty simple and straightforward if you're building a cash game lineup. You're just going to be probably 50% owned, if not higher, in cash games. Let's roll on to our final game of this early slate, if I'm reading correctly. That is Nationals Reds. You mentioned Tanner Roark before. Cincinnati, minus 130 on the money line, over under of 10. This game in Great American Ballpark. Sunny skies, 70 degrees or so. Eric Betty on the other side of this one. I just hate Tanner Roark as a pitcher, so I rarely roster him. But I know the Nats do have strikeouts there, and if you're looking to pivot off of Woodruff and/or Soroka, he's your probably next man up. I have no real interest here, but what do you got on Roark in this game?
I'm gonna need a ruling from Sean V. Which side is the revenge gonna be on, the Nationals or with Roark? I gotta know this now.
Well, it's in Cincinnati, so I don't think he can get old team unless you're visiting their park.
Okay. In any event, I think Roark is one of the more intriguing pitchers. Yahoo, he is 36. DraftKings, we're not going to be happy with paying the price point. And let me check over here on the old dueling of fans. Hat tip to my buddy Dean Shavelson. 7,300. Not the worst spot. We've got the Nationals coming in with the 4.7 implied run total. It's going to be 80 degrees here in the Great American, wait for it, small park. But the one thing I want to point out with Roark, and this was courtesy of Adam Ship, my money sharer, from the last time he and I were on a slate together. It looks like Roark is going away from his fastball, which is marginal at best. Let me rephrase that. It's serviceable, but it's not really a great out pitch. But he's going more and more to his slider, which is actually helping him out. Now, Roark was a national for a long time. He's one of those pitchers where he's how okay Roark's going, and you kind of get like a neutral impression. You're like, well, I'm not really excited that he's going for us, but I'm not scared either. So I'm good with that, unlike Eric Fetty. But he is someone I think that is solid, and in this matchup and on this particular slate, I want him on Yahoo. I don't think I really am excited to get him at 9,600 there on, or whatever he was there on DraftKings, but the 36 on Yahoo I think is a very palatable price point. The Nationals lineup is, not the same without Harper, no Daniel Murphy. Those guys are on other teams, etc. No Ryan Zimmerman, but they're solid. With Trey Turner finally healthy after breaking or fracturing his thumb,
Right.
you've got Adam Eaton at a discounted price point, batting second. Doesn't steal nearly as many bases as advertised when they picked him up in that playoff run trade. But Anthony Rendon, a true legitimate guy on the fringe of the MVP conversation. And then Juan Soto and Matt Adams are just lights out against fellow righties. Let's see. We did. I know
Adams is cheap. Yeah,
yeah,
I know.
he was $9 yesterday on Yahoo. Where is he at today? He is 13. Oh boy, massive price increase there, like 30%. But he's someone I think you can look to on DK. I like him a little more on FanDuel just because you can play the first base and you do have that utility spot.
Yep.
So it's a little more helpful. But I'm not going to talk anybody out of Matt Adams in this matchup in this ballpark.
All right, that does it for the early slate. We're going to run through the late slate here, or I should say the main slate as well. These games obviously a little farther off. You do have content behind the paywall over at awesemo.com if you are a paying member. If you're not, you're watching on YouTube, happy to have you on board. Head on over to awesemo.com, use the promo code MLB Strategy. You see the promo code here on the screen as always as well. And don't forget about that Twitter contest for the game 2 points for the Toronto Raptors. Whoever's closest or gets it right gets 3 free months. If there is a tie, you will be entered into a random drawing with the others who you tied with, and we will pick one winner. Let's get to these night games, and we'll fly through here and get you all off to your Saturdays. Red Sox, Yankees, minus 115 on the money line, 9.5 over under. Rick Porcello against Domingo Herman. Herman's a legit ace when it comes to Major League Baseball. You look at sort of the counting stats. He's given the Yankees all they could hope for and more. They won 4-1 last night, and they get a matchup with Porcello, who's not a Cy Young Award winner. I don't care what happened a few years back, but he's not that good a pitcher. Where does this one break down for you? I assume all offensive bats are at least in play because the talent's there, but how does this one look for you?
I am not, in general, a fan of Porcello, and agree with you that his Cy Young Award was, I don't know, not really his. Wins still carry weight with the voters these days, as well as teams. So that was a little bit frustrating to see him get that. But I would be happy to take the projected top. Let's go top 7 with the Yankees. Going against them, Yankees are carrying a 5 implied run total. That let's check in on Coors here. Coors 6.1, Toronto 5. Who else is up there? We've got the Dodgers at 5. So they're going to be one of the teams that will likely be more popular. We do have some decent pitching on the evening slate, particularly as compared to the afternoon slate. So I'm fine with going against Porcello. I don't think we're going to be alone in that one, but for me, if I were not really worried about price, which we have to worry about, my top play would be Voit, followed by Gary Sanchez. Those guys are both over 5K on DraftKings. I think Aaron Hicks, I'm hoping he gets healthy, and I want to be on. Well, let me rephrase that. I hope he rounds into form now that he is back with the team, and I want to be there early when it happens. I don't mind him against righties, prefer him against lefties, but I'm still okay with that. And then if you want to go cheap, you're going to have to earmark your first base spot. But Kendrys Morales, the switch hitter, he's okay. That's the ringing endorsement, but he is bleeping cheap on most of the sites, Dan. So we are giving up that first base spot, but with the savings we're getting from him, that's where you can work in the Coors Field extravaganza. You can maybe get some of the let's see who doesn't have good first baseman tonight. You can get the Angels going against Tommy Malone, and you can get let's see the Astros going against Tanner Anderson, because those are the teams that really don't have first baseman that you're going to want as part of a stack. So as a one-off, I think the savings you can get on Morales across the board is something that we're going to have to consider. You'll get more input on that tonight when Jake Hari and I, aka the Baseball Savant, discuss this slate 6 o'clock live before lock when we focus in, and we'll have all the lineups for the main slate.
I will say Kendrys Morales is another. I mentioned Abreu in the early slate. Another guy, if you're into X WOBA and X ISO and X slugging percentage, has far underperformed his expected statistics. Now, it's not projecting forward per se, but that would lead to some unluckiness, also some projected regression, as it were. Cheap price point. I like him more where you can play him as a multiple, utility or a guy as an add-on, not taking your first base spot. But I do think that better hitting is to come, at least nominally. At least there's going to be a little bit of an uptick there as we go. So let's continue on. Cubs Cardinals minus 135, 9 over under. Jose Quintana, Jack Flaherty. This one should be a good game. I like Quintana a lot from a Major League Baseball watching games perspective. DFS, he's burned us plenty of times in the past. This game in St. Louis. Any interest in Flaherty or Quintana, and how does the offense break down for you?
Too many righties for me to go to Quintana. Just it's in abundance because, wait for it, there's really no lefties that the Cardinals can roll out outside of Matt Carpenter, who is phenomenal against either handed pitcher. He's still slumping. But we did see this last year. He not only did he not crash into the mountain last year after just an ice cold start, he set a career high with 36 home runs. So keep an eye on him. He is an outstanding play. If you're looking at his trailing numbers or just looking at this year's numbers, it's not going to entice you into playing him, but he's somebody that I'm fine with going against Quintana. Quintana's one of those guys that you're fine with if he was pitching on your team, similar to Tanner Roark, but from the left side. You're not going to be doing cartwheels, but it's not like, oh, God, Quintana's pitching tonight. It's just a tougher matchup for him going against so many righties. He's a guy I think has a decent chance of getting a quality start, so that's something that's going to come into play there on FanDuel. If you are looking to save a little bit and work in those Coors Field hitters, I would not be opposed to going that route. I also don't hate him as an SP2 on DraftKings, or let me get the Yahoo pricing back up, likely even Yahoo. Sorry, delay there. He is 38, so he's kind of right in there with the Tanner Roark price. Or if you want to take somebody like Domingo Herman on Yahoo going against the vaunted Red Sox offense, that's going to be the conversation and decision points that we are looking at for the late slate, or pardon me, the main slate tonight. The
main slate. Let's roll on. There's a ton of pitching that we can get to. I don't know that it's going to be in this next game, though your Mariners have struggled a good deal on the season. Andrew Heaney against Tommy Malone. Angels, M's. Heaney's been somebody who's been injured and has some upside. There are some power bats on the right-hand side for Seattle that scare me a bit. Tommy Malone, same deal. He's been fine and has shown himself to be at least replacement level when he's on his game, and that's not necessarily a compliment. But the Angels have some power bats, obviously, with Trout and Pujols. You do lose Simmons for a majority of the year, but Ohtani should be getting going at some point, coming back from that Tommy John surgery. Minus 115 on the money line, 9.5 over under. Any interest in this game, or is this one that you might just check box off and move on?
If this one was, I'm just looking to see if this one. I'm surprised that the Mariners are playing at 7:15. This is in Seattle, so this must be one of the Fox games today. But if they were on the later slate, I'd have more interest in both pitchers. On the main slate, I'm okay with Andrew Heaney. As you mentioned, he had been out with injury, but he is back. The Mariners do have a pretty good mix of hitters. They've been surprisingly among the top scoring teams in the league. However, I think I'll still fall towards Heaney on this one. I know it's been warm. I talked to my brother the other day. It's going to be nearly 80 degrees at first pitch here because that's going to be at 4 o'clock or 4:15 there in the Pacific Northwest. So that doesn't really bode well for the pitcher. Safeco or T-Mobile Park does play a little more pitching neutral to slightly hitting friendly when you get that kind of weather. In addition to the dimensions, the one thing that really keeps T-Mobile Park as one of the better pitching parks, particularly in the AL, is the fact that it's right there on the water and it's generally cold. Or cooler, and even on if this was a 7 o'clock game, the temperature would be maybe 70 degrees. Maybe
Right.
it would be dipping into the upper 60s, and then by the mid innings, it would definitely be in the mid 60s. So that's just one little thing to consider when you're picking pitchers in Seattle when it's an earlier game and it's a little bit warmer than normal. It's not as much of a park boost for the pitchers. Now, looking at individual hitters here going against Tommy Milone, my first question is, Tommy Milone, I keep thinking of the old Lofty silly pronunciation. Yes. Milone! It's Milone! No, it's actually not. It's Malone. But in any event, it's how was he in AAA for 8 starts? He is a 7 or 8 year veteran. He's in his early 30s and playing for the team that literally has given up the second most runs or first most runs in the league. How was he in AAA for the bulk of the first 6 months or first 6 weeks? It's not like they were saving service time on him or anything like that. And it's like he's still probably better, and I'm gonna be struck by lightning shortly as a Mariners fan, probably better than King Felix, but I don't know how he wasn't there. It's because he's a marginal replacement level, as you mentioned, at best pitcher. So going against him, obviously Mike Trout. Don't sleep on Shohei Ohtani. He has, you're going to look at the numbers and him going against lefties. It's just a small sample size because last year, he was pitching, etc. But don't worry about him in lefty situations. And if Milone gets knocked out of the game, the Seattle bullpen's one of the worst in the league. So I think those two guys would be our starting point. I don't mind Jonathan Lucroy. Let's get a little price check here on him. He is, if we need a catcher, he's going to be $3,700, a little more spendy than I'd like on DK, but not horrible. And he is 18 on, he's 18 on Yahoo. No bueno, don't go there. But those would kind of be the guys I like. I really don't want to go with Albert Pujols. Congrats on paying him for another couple years, Angels. But for me, it's really going to be Trout and Ohtani. On the other side, going against Haney, Mitch Haniger and Domingo Santana are the two guys that I want to look towards here. Both those guys are phenomenal against lefties from a power perspective. Haniger, the much better all-around hitter, but Santana should be in the middle of the lineup. He'll probably bat 4th or 5th, and he is someone that has done a good job of collecting RBI because RBI are based off of situational opportunities. But when he's got Haniger and Encarnacion in front of him, more often than not, somebody's probably going to be on base when he comes up. If they're in scoring position, he's a guy that has a decent chance of knocking him in. And then the last guy I would look towards would be Tim Beckham, who is solid against lefties. 4,100 there on DK. 12. That's a much more palatable price point. 12 for your shortstop on Yahoo. Those would be the 3 guys I'm looking at. Notice I didn't go with Edwin Encarnacion. I don't really like him in this particular matchup. Too many other first basemen, in my opinion.
And we get to the big offensive game of the night. The Blue Jays and Rockies, Stroman v. Gray. 2 pitchers that have upside, clearly. Stroman seemed to have found some of his swag again this year. And you have John Gray, who we've seen upside from. It's a minus 150 for Colorado, over under of 11. Quick yes or no, Emac, and then we can move to the offense. Do either of these pitchers interest you, or are you willing to just stay away completely and get to offense?
They're not hitting the ball off a tee tonight?
No, they are not.
Okay, then no, I don't really want either pitcher.
Yep.
Stroman gets a lot of ground balls. That's going to play well in Coors Field, but come on. It's a 6.2 implied run total, and there are some phenomenal hitters here on Coors. On the other side, John Gray had been a little dinged up recently. He's an okay pitcher. Toronto, not the best offense as we have seen, and they're going to be having Stroman batting, but still, come on. Coors Field here. There are other places to go. If this was on the afternoon slate, I would consider one of these guys because their ownership is going to be a fraction of some of the other players or pitchers we'd be looking at. But on the main slate with some decent pitching here. It's a little pitchy, dog. A little pitchy. It's gonna be a no for me.
And then offense. I don't think we have to belabor too much here. All the Colorado bats in the top 5 or 6 seem to be in prime spots, no matter how good Stroman's been. On the Toronto side, again, it's Colorado. John Gray's fine, but if you want to pick and choose some of these power bats from Toronto, any issues there, or anyone you would say not to roster here?
No, we should see Jansen in the lineup. I don't think he was in there last night.
He's another one of the ex-ISO, ex-Woba guys who has severely underperformed his expected stats.
And it looks like, Gurriel was down. They put him back in the minors for about 2 weeks, didn't they? And he's been called back up.
Yeah, Lourdes Gurriel. Yes.
Lourdes Gurriel Jr. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So he quote cleared his head, and now it's probably going to be batting 5th tonight. So there you go. I need a ruling from Sean B there, but I feel that now that he has cleared his head and hit some home runs since he's returned, Dan, I feel that he is inspired by his time to collect his thoughts in the farm system.
I just want to see how far, if Vlad Guerrero can completely connect on a ball, how far he'll hit one in Coors Field. So I'm looking forward to John Gray hopefully meatballing one, or maybe the bullpen can come in and give Vlad one on a tee to just see how far he can hit. I know he's already leading the league, I think, in 110 mile per hour or higher hits, exit velocity on the year. He has 4, I think, and Gallo has 2. But still, all the bats in play here. We'll get into the nuance, as Emac said on Live Before Lock later today. When it comes to the actual lineups and roster construction, don't want to belabor, though, that Coors obviously is a big game here. Marlins and Padres up next. Jose Urena. Nick Margevicius is back in the major leagues. Minus 150 on the money line for San Diego and 8 over/under. Urena in play for me here because he's dirt cheap. And San Diego does strike out a lot against right-handed pitchers. Where do you stand in this one?
I was following our friend Adam Scherer on Twitter, and he and I have talked off air, and he didn't think Margevicius was going to be coming back. He thought the 4 home runs allowed 2 weeks ago was going to be the end of it. He was like, I didn't think he'd get sent down. Good God, if they've sent him down, are they ever going to bring him back? Well, they kind of had to. But, yeah, definitely go for the Marlins against him, or at least don't play Margevicius. It's hard to tell who is the Marlin batsman that you would be most intrigued by.
Anderson, far away.
Well, let me rephrase that. The only Marlins hitter you're probably going to look at is going to be Anderson, but they are dirt cheap, particularly on Yahoo. You've got Austin Dean that will likely be leading off. Or if he is leading off, he is the minimum. That's going to help out a lot. Martin Prado doesn't strike out, doesn't usually hit the ball out of the infield, but his minimum price. And if someone's on base, perhaps, as long as it isn't a double play or an out, he will get an RBI. Maybe. That's the ringing endorsement there. On the other side, I think Jose Urena is okay. Not on Yahoo 31. There's other guys I would want to roll the dice with, but over there on DraftKings as your SP2, I don't think he is the worst guy you can look at. He is, let me get there, 5,700. That makes him incredibly intriguing because, wait for it, there are hitters priced more expensively than that in Coors Field, and those are the guys I want. If you can box in 1 or 2 guys that gets a home run, maybe, wait for it, a double dong, they are going to far outperform Jose in this one, and that is just okay when you put them together as a collective instead of just considering each person individually.
All right, Houston and Oakland, Verlander v. Brett Anderson. I said on the podcast, Anderson is at least within the realm of possibilities for me here, as it's Bregman, Brantley, and then cast of who's who, or who are they, I should say, when it comes to the Astros. Yeah, Reddick and Tyler White and Gurriel all have power, but I do think this is a time to take a look at price points for pitchers going against Houston. This is a minus 160 in favor of the Astros, 7.5 over-under, though. And Verlander clearly in play against Oakland. Anything I'm missing in this contest? Seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I think you got it there. We don't have to overthink this one. Verlander is going to be one of the guys we want to consider. Oakland may have Chris K back this evening, but it is Justin Verlander. This is a bit of a park boost for him. Oakland's coming in with a 3.3 implied run total. That looks to be one of the lowest on the slate. And for perspective, that's even less than the Marlins against Margevicius. So, yes, we are paying top dollar for Verlander, but he does have double-digit strikeout potential. Oakland does. Let me rephrase that. Oakland not striking out quite as frequently as they have been in prior years. However, the underlying expected level of strikeouts, once we broaden it out from this season, is still there for Oakland. So I don't mind that. Uncle DFS says you're in at 31 is definitely in play on Yahoo. Tune in tonight. We'll break that one down a little further. I don't know that I can go there, but I have streamed him in on my head-to-head season-long league, so I'm playing him. I like it. I just don't know if I like it within that context on Yahoo, but we'll have to see what hitters end up being in that Coors Field game and what we need to save. So he potentially could be in there. I don't want to dismiss him yet, but he is not in my plans at the moment on Yahoo. Yes, I'm definitely on DK at 5,700. You betcha. Yahoo, jury's still out on Urena.
I am not discounting the idea of playing Urena and Anderson on DraftKings for this night's slate together and just going for it and going for the bats, going for Colorado, going for some other high upside, expensive bats and seeing where I end up.
Did you play Cashner last night?
I did play Cashner.
I thought about it, couldn't pull the trigger. Not that I was against it, and I heard you on the podcast, and I was like, oh, okay. I was like mines. I'm like, okay, this is good, and I just never ended up on him. And then I flipped on the game at 8 o'clock, and I'm like, ooh. Sorry, Dan. Guess you'll get to spend time with your daughters tonight.
He gave me enough. I didn't do too poorly. I stacked the Orioles and the Rockies. So
okay.
Like offense worked out. And that's what I'm saying. Like pitching again, it's so tightly priced on DK. They're forcing hands, and I'm gonna take what they give me and maybe zig where other people are zagging and go for the offensive stacks and take these junk pitchers and hope for 10 to 12 DraftKings points and then hope for the double home run guys. Notice the phrase I don't use there. And we continue on. Let's go Mets, D-backs, DeGrom v. Greinke. This should be a good game, but it feels like a game where both pitchers are going to give up 8 runs because it's just the way their seasons have been. Greinke's been more solid. I know the opening season loss was a bad one. He's been fine since then. DeGrom's been enigmatic all over the map with his pitches and struggling at times. This is minus 110 for Arizona, 7.5 over under. I'm not on either pitcher because of price point, but I think Greinke would be fine because the Mets bats do struggle and do strike out enough. What do you got here?
Yeah, these guys are going to be more on the late slate for me. The main slate, I just can't get there. And as you mentioned, it's price. They're at the low 9s on DK. They're nearly one's 10,000, one's just shy on FanDuel, and they're both above or 50 or above on Yahoo. I just can't do that with the different hitting environments that we have available to us on this slate. If this and by the way, the roof is open tonight. It should be closed tomorrow, but it's open tonight. So that's really not going to be helpful to either of these guys. That said, it's one of the lower implied run totals. It's checking in at just a tick under 8. So I don't hate it on the main slate or probably the late slate, but not really going there on the main slate from pitchers just because they're so expensive. But I'm also not looking to any of the hitters because they're both facing phenomenal former Cy Young winners here, and that's just I think a losing proposition on both sides there.
All right, I'm not on anybody really here. I think one-offs from offense, and if you can get to DeGrom or Greinke, great, but I'd rather get to Verlander. I think the floor more secure. I do agree Oakland's not striking out as much, but I would stay away from this price point for the most part. On DK specifically, FanDuel, the same, to be quite honest. Yahoo, probably not, to be honest. Phillies, Dodgers to close it out. Clayton Kershaw, you remember him, minus 210 on the money line, 8.5 over under. He's facing Cole Irvin. Give me every single possible Dodgers bat that I can fit into my lineup. All the righties, even give me Bellinger. I just think this is a blow up spot for Irvin. How do you stand, and what do you think of this game?
Yeah, I want no part of the Phillies, both from a hitting perspective or a pitching perspective. It's going to be all Dodgers. Again, this is not Clayton effing Kershaw anymore. This is Clayton Kershaw, who I wish was on my team, but he's not a guy I want to pay current price points. Late slate, yeah, you're going to mix and match between him, Greinke, and DeGrom, just because that's the way this slate's going to, the 3-game late one is going to work out, and then you're probably going to roll the dice with Urena. So look to those 3 expensive guys. If you're playing just a couple lineups, check out the Osmo Premium content for ownership, because, wait for it, our late slate ownership, our regular ownership, or popularity as I prefer to call it, is good. The late slate is bleeping uncanny on some of this stuff, and I do want to point out this is coming directly from it's a collaboration from Tom JK over there. He's the 7th or 8th best gamer in the world. Osmo is number 1, and then people don't really know who 1-800 Eddie is, because he does that by design, but he's a guy who is really, really good as well. Those are our behind the scenes guys and the founders of the site. We're getting the data straight from their models, and they just preach time and time again to play the late slates and the short slates. And I've never really been one to do it because I hated it, but it becomes not more about the plays you want to play. It becomes more about what the field is doing and how to go against them appropriately. This doesn't mean you pee into the wind and say it's raining, but you can find some interesting spots here. And with the way the pricing is lining up on these pitchers tonight, at the higher end, whichever of the 3 that we mentioned between DeGrom, Greinke, and Kershaw is less popular, play that one, and then go about your day and pick whomever else you like. Because if everything else goes well for you, you're probably going to be in a spot to at least min cash, if not make some noise, if you're able to, get that right combination of players. So that's something I use. Again, I used to hate the single game contests and the 2-gamers. I actually enjoy them now, even the 2-gamers when you have to play 2 pitchers. Dan, I never thought I'd get to that point. So just saying, again, free content there, upper left corner on the Osmo site. Those are a whole set of articles from Alex Baker talking about how he approaches things. It's called Learn DFS, and it's free. These are evergreen content articles that will change the way you play. And that's something that's important as contests get more top heavy. The management fees / rake start to increase even more than they already are, and the minimum cash no longer doubling up. In some cases, you're not even getting half again of your entry fees, which is like, what's the point? So do we need to play 50-50s like they're a tournament at this point, Dan? Because frankly, the payout structure
it's getting there.
It's about right. So.
I think you made a great point, though, and to double down on it, the idea of when people are tilt entering late contests, they are going to try to search for the same plays they played in the early slate or in the main slate on the late slate. So, if it's a Dodger stack, they're going to stick with that Dodger stack and then try to make it work otherwise. When you can go against the ownership grain and find good plays still, not saying, again, to quote EMAC, peeing in the wind and saying it's raining, when you take that and understand it and understand where you can pivot to, it just opens up a world of opportunity. It's the same as EMAC, you're talking before about leagues to play in. I think it's also about waiting for the second and third iterations of these tournaments to come out. Yeah. So when the massive $4, $10, 33, 66, whatever you're in, when they go and DK or FanDuel usually rolls out a second, maybe even a third, depending on popularity, those are tournaments to get into. Yes, more people enter them and they fill, but typically the sharks, if you want to call them that, the touts, the analysts, whoever it is, have already played their mass entries because they've gotten into them early and reserved their spots. And secondarily, the payouts are typically flatter. And so, yes, you're not going to bing $50,000, but you might win 500 or 1,000, or you might win 200. That helps sustain your bankroll. and it's about contest selection, especially with baseball. Baseball is a war of attrition. It is a tough slog through the summer. You don't want to go all in. You don't want to burn out here in May or June. You want to have it throughout the summer. And I'm with Emac. He and I are similar players, and I'm playing for fun. I am playing to win money, but I am playing, within my means and trying to understand and have some fun while along the way. But I think it's great advice. Bankroll management does matter. Unless you're a millionaire, then have fun. Do whatever it is that you want to do. Emac, you're going to be on later with Jake on that Live Before Lock. You'll want to check that out here on our YouTube channel. As Emac pointed out, tons of content for free over at awesemo.com. Also stuff behind the paywall. Use the promo code MLB Strategy to get 50% off your first month. And don't forget, head on over to Twitter. Even if you don't have a Twitter account, make one. You can enter to win 3 free months from awesemo.com if you guess the total point for the Toronto Raptors tonight. So you can do that over on Twitter. Check out the pin tweet. You got to retweet it. You got to follow awesemo_com and Awesemo NBA for a chance to win. Thanks so much for everyone who joined us. Reminder, like button is highly, highly recommended. And share this video on social media. We always appreciate getting new people to join the chat here on YouTube and also become members at awesemo.com. Emac, any final words before I say so long?
Check out my pin tweet. I do have the Fred Van Elite contest. That one, I either hear from people, it filled too early, you made it too small. And then last time we made it big because we had four days to get there, but it's on DK, so it has to fill the run. It was like, well, how come it didn't run? It's like, all right, tonight or for the game on Sunday, it's 40. It's $1. If you win it with an Awesemo avatar, you get 1 free month of premium.
There you go.
It's not $1 coming to us. It's a DK contest I have no control over. Top 10 are paid out, and I'm going to be putting Fred Van Vliet in my captain spot, which was horrid for the first 2 series. It's been a little better since the birth of his child.
Them continuing on has helped your brand immensely. I mean, this is fantastic.
Just make it end, please.
Exactly. That's going to do it for the MLB Strategy Show. Thanks so much for joining us here on our YouTube channel. Subscribe, like, all of those things, and we'll check you later here with Emac and Jake on nothing better than Live Before Lock from awesemo.com.